Continuing with auditory nerve pathologies is auditory neuropathy or auditory dyssynchrony, and this occurs when a patient has normal outer hair cell function, but the response on the eighth cranial nerve that carries the electrical signal to the brain fails to occur in synchrony. So, like the auditory nerve and the brain, they're out of sync. Instead of a smooth transition of information from the cochlea to the brainstem, the information is not relayed in a consistent manner. The degree of dyssynchrony varies from person to person, and it can fluctuate within the same person. A person can exhibit a mild to moderate sensorineural hearing loss with speech recognition difficulties being disproportionately poor to their audiogram results. There's an absence of ABR waves, but no evidence of a lesion on the eighth nerve or the brainstem. Hearing loss and auditory neuropathy and auditory dyssynchrony appears to be slowly progressive. A person does not benefit from the hearing aid, so the hearing aid is not helping. A hearing aid simply amplifies the sound. Rehabilitation efforts might help, but what does help, surprisingly, is cochlear implantation. So a cochlear implant bypasses the outer hair cells, even though they're working correctly, and it directly stimulates the auditory nerve. It's sort of like maybe the electrical impulses of the cochlear implant kind of sync the auditory nerve and the auditory cortex into working correctly. So children and adults with auditory neuropathy and auditory dyssynchrony can benefit from cochlear implantation. Another disorder is minimal auditory deficiency syndrome. So this is a change in the structure of the brain as a result of cochlear or conductive hearing losses. So transient and mild conductive hearing losses due to otitis media could affect the developmental skills essential for learning language. This is a bit controversial, but I believe this is true. So if a child has repeated ear infections for extended periods of time, it's going to affect their language development. So how much that lack of input to the cochlea and the auditory nerve, how much of an effect it actually has on the child's language is still debatable. But the question is, what do these mild conductive hearing losses that come and go, how do they affect brain development of the auditory cortex? So some believe that there's a cause and effect relationship between early and recurrent otitis media and later learning and communication disorders. Not the extent of the hearing loss that is the big problem, it's the fluctuating nature of the disorder. The fact that there are differences in hearing sensitivity between two ears, one ear is infected and the other ear is not infected, and that it's transient, that it comes and goes.